Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Kemler. Our next guest is the hilarious writer, actor, and director, Paul W. Downs. He's one of the main creative forces behind Broad City, which sadly is coming into its final season this week. Let's take a look.
Happy 30, birdie. Happy 30. Happy 30th birthday, Abby.
Okay, so today we are walking from the...
Sorry, 1 second. No screws. This is gonna be the littiest story ever. Happy 30th birthday, Abby.
Okay, so today we are walking from the tippity top of Manhattan to the tippity bottom of Manhattan. It's function, baby. It's fashion, baby. It's fluid, baby. I gotta fill it out. There's nothing in there right now.
Oh yeah, dude. I am so happy that you got these.
Philip Lim on a shop op discount, $149 at 80% off, okay? And we're talking only half a size smaller than the size I actually wear, so work it down.
Hold on, is that the key to my heart?
Yeah, this one's the key to your heart.
What's the other one?
The key to your ass!
Everybody put your hands together for Paul W. Downs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, how gracious.
Yes. Yeah, it's a nod to my character, you know.
Paul, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Congratulations on Broad City and bringing it to a close.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sad?
Yeah. Terrifying. Sad.
Why terrifying?
I need health insurance. You know? How am I going to get health insurance? You know? No.
Your first thought when they're like, guys, I think we've done enough. It's time to wrap it up.
It was because I have a lot of cosmetic work I want to do, so I need.
Not covered by most insurances, though.
Really?
Have you not looked into that?
I haven't even looked. I just have a dream. I have a dream of a nose. You know.
Went in, I wanted to get this taken in. I wanted to get this up. I wanted to get some filler.
You did.
And they said, no, the insurance doesn't cover that.
All right, so forget that. Well, then in that case, it's good. It feels good. It feels right. It feels
You
like
have
the right
to
time.
age as yourself now.
Wow. I don't do that. I don't think so. No, it is sad. It's bittersweet because I think all of us have been a family for a long time, and so it feels sad to say goodbye to this world and these characters. But Abbi and Ilana and the rest of the characters on the show, as well as Abbi and Ilana, the writers, and Lucia and I, have grown up a lot doing this, and so it feels like a graduation, kind of. It feels like a good time to do it, and like we didn't overstay our welcome. So in that way, it kind of feels right.
It's the 5th season, right? Yeah. And when did you guys decide? At what point during the making of the show did you decide that this was going to be the last season?
Well, I don't know exactly when it was, but it was a creative decision. It wasn't, like the network was like, okay, that's good, we're done. It really felt like, as you saw in that clip, Abbi turns 30 in this episode. Both of them are playing younger on the show than they actually are. And, the show is about New York and about hustling in New York in your 20s. And I think it's about a very specific slice of life. And that's a kind of a part of life that none of us are experiencing anymore. And so in a way, it felt less authentic, which is one of the things I think people love about the show is that people feel like these are real friends and real people and real stories, and it really does feel like a kind of New York that a lot of people can relate to.
To keep it going, you'd have to get someone pregnant on the show or have some sort of a wedding or something?
You know what? That is right. I think in order to keep it going, you would need pregnancy and a wedding. I think that's right. But that would be a very different show, right? So.
But that's kind of the decision that you guys make is like, instead of bringing these characters over the next hump and into this next phase of life, let's just stop the show here because that is the show.
Right, exactly.
Whereas most sitcoms, at least in the 80s and 90s, would have milked them for 10 seasons.
Exactly, maybe double the length, yeah. You would have seen people date and not date and come back together and date again. And
Were there ever any conversations about doing that, or was it just very quickly you guys knew it really wasn't worth kind of doing that to the show?
We always have conversations in the beginning of a writing season, just called a blue sky, where we just talk about big picture things that can happen to the characters and how their lives can change. But because the show is a very certain thing, I think there was a little bit of resistance to make it change a ton. I mean, in the end, it's a love story between Abbi and Ilana, and so to have them move apart or to have them have partners or children or families that kept them away from one another kind of defeats the purpose of the show, which is this love story between the two of them.
Which is exactly what happens like around 30, 31. The love stories between your friends for the most part end, and they begin with your actual partners that you decide to pursue your life with.
Exactly right. Like that is, I think, the thing. In the end, we try and be really truthful to the characters and to the world of the characters, and it felt like the most truthful thing to sort of end the show. So
What did it take me back to the first season when you guys were planning essentially the first season out? The web series has ended. It's been picked up by Amy Poehler and Comedy Central for the first season. What was the first day like in the writer's room?
it was so fun because we were idiots. We were like, a bunch of people that had never written. Well, that's not true. One person in the room had written television before, but none of us had.
Who was the one person?
Tammy Sager, who ran the show in the beginning. And other than Tammy, Abbi, Ilana, Lucia, and I, and for most of the first season, also Chris Kelly, who was at the time, I think it was his first season writing for SNL. None of us had written for long-form narrative television. And in that way, it was kind of like a bunch of kids, hanging out. And I think because we didn't know the rules, it was really an asset. It allowed us to break the rules and make the show the way we wanted to make it. And I think that was a real benefit to the show.
Did you guys find as you learned the rules going through the seasons, like halfway through the second or third season?
We didn't learn the rules.
You didn't learn
We
the
didn't learn the rules. We don't know the rules. We're still being told the rules. There will still be things now as we work with other writers or in other writers' room, or we're pitching shows that we're like, oh, didn't know that was a thing. It's not how we do it. Also, our writing process is, I think, a lot faster than a lot of like network shows, of course, and a lot of premium cable shows. We have 12 weeks to write all 10 episodes, so it's essentially an episode a week we write. Wow. The room is not very large. A lot of writers' rooms have big budgets and have a ton of different writers who go off on script. We are in the room breaking every single day, and then we go to script at nights and weekends. So it's really kind of a...
And that is essentially like you spend the entire day breaking it down with the writers,
Yeah.
and then you take this script home this weekend and
Yep.
you write it. You
Yep.
take this script home this weekend and you write it.
Yep, exactly right.
Wow.
So it's really, and actually weirdly, I
Does
think...
that just get divided up based on they had to do it last weekend, it's your turn this weekend?
Kind of. I mean, sometimes if it's based on someone's experience in the room, that person is obviously the best candidate to write the story.
But even then, someone's experience is usually just a snippet
Yes.
of the
It is
story.
just the kernel. Yeah, it's the
because
seed
the
that...
script has been broken down by all of you.
Right. That's right. But again, if someone had the experience, I'm trying to think of a good example of it, but if someone had the experience, it oftentimes feels like, oh, well, you were mugged, and that's what happens in this episode. So because the genesis of this story came from your pitch or the fact that you had that story, why don't you write this one? But then it's also like, well, I'm writing one right now, so maybe you should write it, So I think there's various reasons why
Is
certain
there
scripts were assigned.
a part of you that at this point wants very badly to be in like a big budget writer's room and to see what that is like? Or do you think that would feel oppressive in a way because you've had it your way for 5 years?
Yeah, no, I want it my way or nothing else. I only want it my way. No, I think it would be really interesting and nice, and yet there was something kind of magical about it being small because we all had a shorthand with each other. It's almost like we're siblings at this point, and we'll be like, oh, it would be good actually that story you have about when you were in camp. Like we know each other's stories now and can fill in the holes, and so having a small room actually I think was a big asset for us. So I think it depends. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
What has it been like to grow up in the room as well as have these two characters grow up? So much to the point where the characters are clearly on a path in this season of growth, and you guys have probably also grown in a way where you're growing away from each other. Sounds negative, but I don't mean it that way. I mean it in the way of you all probably want to pursue different projects.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. It's weird how life imitates art and vice versa. Even to the point that a writer on the show, Jen Statsky, who wrote an episode where Ilana gets a rat. Sorry, Jen. I'm about to out Jen. She got a rat like very soon after writing that episode, and it was an issue. So it's weird how life has imitated art a lot on the show. But yeah, I think in that way, we've all, in a way, we've gotten so much closer because we know each other and we've experienced the growth of the show and the fact that people started watching the show and people started recognizing us for the show. And we've experienced things that only we share. and yet we do want to do other things. And Broad City takes up a very big part of our year. So I think in that way, we've also, we have other interests and things we want to do. And, I think in that way it is weirdly like the show too.
You directed an episode this season.
I did.
Is that your first episode that you've
I
directed?
thought you were going to cut to a picture of me in a beret because I directed in a beret.
Did you really?
Oh, yes. Turtleneck and beret. Yeah. Yeah.
For how many days?
You
Was
gotta
that
look
like
the
2
part.
weeks with a beret?
No,
and a
we
turtleneck?
direct 4 days an episode.
4 days an episode.
Can you believe 4 days an episode? How is a show like that done in 4 days? But yes, we direct. We have 4 days, give or take, and we shoot all over the city. So it's really a hustle. It's wild. We have such an amazing crew that does things so quickly that I think a lot of...
Finds your locations, too. I mean, if you were doing it that fast. Wow.
I mean, it really was baptism by fire, the fact that we all came up on this show, because I think, especially Lucia, who's directed a lot of things for network and features, has really been like, oh, wow, I'm really equipped to do things in a very quick way because of my experience doing Broad City.
Right.
Yeah.
So when
it's really like the show. It's scrappy and we're hustling, It's like Abbi and Ilana, we're hustling all the time.
So what was it like for you to direct?
Torture. It was pain. It was torture.
Really?
No,
Did it feel different? Because you've written the episodes, you're on set all the time, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah.
Did it really feel that different? Like you had that much more distinct control?
It's interesting because I'm on set as a writer-producer. So in a way, it didn't feel that much different, except you're now in the driver's seat and you're like, okay, we have only half an hour to get this scene before we... You're thinking almost... You have court vision, and so you're thinking about all the things you need to do and can you move on? As opposed to when I'm on set as a writer or even as an actor, I just get to be like, oh, you know what would be funny? This would be fun. I just get to be creative.
We don't have time for that.
Yeah,
Paul.
exactly.
Yeah.
They're stressed out. They're pulling out their hair. They're thinking about like the fact that they're closing down this street in a few minutes and we can't shoot there anymore. So in that way, it was a little bit less creatively liberating. But I also really enjoyed the control, the power. I'm a control
You're a
freak.
power guy.
Oh yeah, I'm a power guy. Big power guy. Yeah.
Big
power guy.
Big power guy.
Big power guy. Yeah.
Humongous,
yeah.
fantastic
Humongous,
power guy.
huge power guy. You're fired. I fired so many people. It was crazy. The network called me. They said stop firing people. They had to hire them back.
Even the
that's
guy
not
that
true.
walks around the set and does that as a joke is
Exactly.
awful.
Exactly. You fired. No, but
come back.
yeah, no, I did love it. It was really fun because I also, again, having worked with the cast and crew so much, it was the most comfortable place for me to do it, and the place where I got to, I feel like, be really free and wacky and take risks as a director. And yet, acting is way more fun. It's so much more fun just to have one job and just to...
Were you, the episode that you directed, were you also in it?
I was not in it.
Okay.
Yes, which I think was a big asset. I actually took the Directors Guild, when you are directing your first episodic television, they have a sort of an orientation where you come in and they're like, this is stuff that you should know to do. And one of the things they do, because there are a lot of actors who want to direct, and actually in my class was like Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson, and there were so many actors Kristen Bell. There were so many actors in my class, and they were like, so actors, you need to get your scenes out of the way first if you can. Obviously, you could work with the AD. That may not be possible. And also, if you can, change the way you look because everyone's used to you being the character. It's a whole new role. To 100%. They were like, wear a hat, which is why, again, I wore a beret. I wore a beret and a turtleneck because I was like, well, I got to look the part, And then it became a bit, and then it was like, they did. They suggested that. It was just like an offhand suggestion. It wasn't like it's not in the byline of the DGA. It's not like one of their
it just seems
bylaws,
so
their
fun.
rules.
Everybody's so used to you being the star, so
Well,
change the way you look.
Which I think is probably a real issue for people who have been on a show for so long. Weirdly, again, because I have...
That's true. If there's so much crew and they don't happen to know that you are directing that episode or something,
If it's a
why
huge...
why is Paul telling me where to move the lights?
Right,
Weird.
yeah. Especially if you're doing something like Grey's Anatomy and it's like, what's going on? But I think our set is a little bit smaller and a little bit more... It's just more intimate, so I think that wasn't really a...
Right, on your set, everyone was probably knew and was kind of rooting for you.
Everyone was so cool and supportive and helpful. And it really felt like a very fun transition. It was a nice thing to do.
2 years ago, you starred in, one of the stars and wrote Rough Night.
Yes.
With Lucia, who
Thank
is
you.
also a writer and director on Broad City.
That's right.
She's been directing for a number of years now, a lot of work with you. What did you learn from her as a director that you took into the seat?
I mean, I've stolen everything from her. I've watched her and stolen so much. I mean, she is so good. The thing is, it's hard to learn some of the skills that
She makes a very wonderful appearance in this season.
She
as well.
does, yeah. That's right. They sent that episode out. Yeah, so Lucia is actually on this season, and I think I can say the character she plays, because the character, for those of you who watch Broad City closely, she plays a character that's been spoken about but never seen, Abby's college roommate, Smelly Pussy Donna. This might be the first time it's being announced to the world, but Lucia plays Smelly Pussy Donna, which was
Exclusive. Smelly
it's an
Pussy Donna makes an appearance.
Yeah, Smelly Pussy Donna exclusive. But it's something that I forget when it was, when we were first talking about Smelly Pussy Donna in the room, that Abbi or Ilana were like, Lucia, that's going to be you. You're going to play. And then, lo and behold, season 5, she makes an appearance. But Lucia has such a gift for making things funny, and also because she, we started making YouTube videos. We started doing digital stuff. At the same time, Abbi and Ilana started doing Broad City, and that's how we ended up collaborating on the web series with them. I was in an episode, and Lucia directed some of the episodes. But from making stuff and having to literally Google how to edit, I think that really gave her the architecture in the brain for directing in a way that's one thing that for me, I'm a little bit dyslexic, so I'm like, when they're like, you're crossing the line, I'm like, what are you talking about? There are certain things that I'm like, this is beyond me. I think, help make the scene work, or let's lose this part and let's do this, and you know what, do that, it's funnier. It's easier for me to direct, I think, performance. But she's so good at knowing, oh, we're never going to use that shot. I'm not going to use that in the edit, because she's been there and edited so much. I have as well, I just didn't remember. I don't remember. There's a lot of things that I'm like.
The crossing the line thing, I can't. No matter how many times I have directed, you're crossing that, I'm like, okay.
I know. I'm like, let me draw it. It's baffling.
Yeah.
It's baffling.
You also, I guess you said trial by fire is exactly right. The only way to learn to tell a story and to direct is to be shooting and editing as much as possible all the time.
That's right. Yeah, it's really like experience is the best thing. I mean, Lucia studied film in school, but she wasn't in in a film school, so it wasn't actually the practice of making. But I do think that her real education came from sitting down and doing it and just making stuff. And I think that's true of so many things. You just have to do it, It's one of the reasons that, Abbi and Ilana and Lucia and I coming out of the Upright Citizens Brigade, and who knows how to do it. You take classes and you learn the rules of improv, but you really know it when you get up on stage and you just do it, and that also helps you develop your voice and your sense of timing and all of that. And it's one thing to sit in a class and hear the rules, and it's such another thing to actually get up and try.
Well, I'd imagine that has to do with writing as well. Like especially writing film or writing TV, when you're writing, you think something is necessary, and then you see it edited, and you're like, oh, all of that stuff that I thought was necessary doesn't actually propel any action forward or make anybody laugh. So the next time you go write something, you can kind of scrap that stuff that would have come up first.
Someone just asked me in one of these what advice I would give my 18-year-old self. And one of the things I was saying was, well, now knowing what I do, don't worry about a backup plan. Just do this all the time. But I'm almost glad I didn't study writing, I did take theater in school, and I was in a comedy group in college, but it wasn't like my full-time thing, because I was like, oh, I better do public policy class, I better have a backup. But I also don't.
What was your backup major? Can I ask? Was it public policy?
I invented my own major. Very cool.
I went to one of those schools as well.
Did you really?
Yeah, Alton? It's now closing.
Oh, it is. Oh no.
Hampshire College.
Oh, Hampshire. Yeah.
Merging or something. They're not taking a freshman class.
Really? Yeah. That's a shame.
Yeah, really. It genuinely bummed me out. I was surprised when I read it how kind of emotional I got.
I get that. Yeah. I can't believe that. I didn't know. Anyway, back to me.
To you.
What the
Let me get back to doing my job.
What are we doing? No, I'm only kidding. That is interesting. I would much rather talk about you, to be honest. I'm like, who cares, right? Who cares? But anyway, I did public policy and cultural anthropology mostly. And that's where but really what I did was I just asked my favorite professors what class they wish they could take, and then I took that class. And because I did this thing where you could invent your own, I could kind of take class from any area of study, which was great. And then I did theater as a minor, actor, and, did comedy. That was really my thing, was doing comedy.
And the advice that you would give your 18-year-old self is to just
get
do that. Started and do it?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say, because I think some of those classes actually come into the work so much. And I think had I studied writing, I don't know if I would actually be as good a writer as I am from just trying it out. Again, Broad City, I think, we went back and watched season 1 as we wrote season 5, and we were like, wow, we really just followed the fun. We didn't necessarily have the kind of act breaks we eventually had, or the kind of B and C stories. Sometimes we didn't have a B or C story. It was just following a tiny mission around the city, and that was it. And I think doing that made it feel real and fresh.
Yeah, that's why people responded to it so
Yeah.
well, I think, right off the bat, is because it just felt completely different and in no way formulaic.
Right. So in that way, I'm like, I don't know that telling myself just to do that all the time would necessarily have made me better. But I would have said, don't worry about a backup plan, and don't worry. It'll be okay. Things will be fine.
But what's so interesting is the first episode of this season that's airing Thursday night is all shot in Instagram stories.
Yes. It's one, like, you know when you see an Instagram story and it's like a million dots? That's what it is. It's a million dots.
And it's fascinating because as much as it breaks all the rules, and in a lot of ways while watching it, it feels like the collapse of linear television in a way.
Yeah.
It still actually follows specific storytelling rules. Do you think you had those even in the first? I mean, there's a character in the midst of the second act who makes an appearance in the third and sort of wraps everything up, and you have this sort of little beat in the first act that clearly has a place at the end of the second. Like everything is kind of there in terms of story structure. It's just now in this new format.
Right.
Did you even have those structural ideas in the first season?
Well, I think it would have been much harder to write this episode in the first. I don't know if we could have made this episode in the first season, not only because Instagram really wasn't what it is. I don't think Instagram stories existed, so we couldn't have done it. We literally couldn't have done it. But I think also we've now, we've just had more experience, and I think that allowed us to break form in a way.
You wouldn't have a format to put those ideas into, or structure to sort of put those new ideas in.
Right. So, but you're right. It is a little bit troubling. It's like the collapse of linear television. It's like, just watch my Instagram story. And yet, hopefully it's more than that. Hopefully it becomes more than, just an Instagram story.
There's just something when the act breaks happen in that, it's a completely different feeling.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I'm watching a story.
Yeah.
I'm watching their live Instagram story. So it is
a reminder that you're watching a narrative in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, Little Caesars. It's very, But you know what? Who knows? Maybe Instagram stories will have ads soon. Who can say?
I think they already do. Or they, their
Oh,
ads
no.
are like...
Do they? They're so insidious, I don't notice them.
I'm sure Kendall Jenner or somebody is like...
Well, yeah.
Their story is like...
They have ads in there, yeah.
They're just doing a normal thing, and then all of a sudden they're drinking a Pepsi.
Right, and swipe up, and hashtag ad,
I think we have time for one question from the audience.
Only one, so make it so good, please. Hi.
Oh, it's so too much pressure.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. Just kidding. Make it horrible. Make it boring and dumb. Who cares?
But I wanted to say, first of all, I think that I spend at least half hour watching Instagram stories every day. So it feels very natural for an episode to be an Instagram story. But my question is, what are you most looking forward to the audience watching in this season?
The episode you directed.
I am really looking forward to people watching the episode I directed, but I think I'm most looking forward to them watching the finale. I think the finale is really, it's sad because, it's saying goodbye to the world of Broad City and to a lot of the characters. A lot of the cast are in that episode. But I think it's also really satisfying. We've all seen a series finale and been pleased or disturbed by what happens in the finale. Sometimes we're like, what? That's the ending of the show? Are you crazy? But I think this is a really satisfying and happy ending, even though it is,
How close to the finale of 6 Feet Under is it?
Literally exactly the same. It's so bizarre because I will say everybody dies. I will say Sia is a big part of it. She makes a physical appearance.
I always forget that that's a Sia song.
Oh, how could you forget? I feel like that's where I'm sure she was working for years before that, but I feel like that's where I was like first aware of Sia.
I didn't find out that was Sia until Sia became
Sia. Yeah.
And I was like, who's Sia? And they were like, come on, Ricky, it was the 6 Feet Under song.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I know. Well, that did precede her for me, actually. But yeah, so everybody dies. Again, whatever, spoiler, it's okay. But it's a beautiful death. Every death is individual and beautiful and special.
I always laugh so hard at that finale when Keith gets shot coming out of the armed car because everybody's deaths are like
that's hilarious.
Well, everybody's deaths are kind of peaceful and they float off, and then all of a sudden he's shot 6 times in the chest.
Yeah, well, they gotta vary it up. Yeah.
Were there any finales that you looked at when you guys were talking about this one?
No. We didn't really. I think trying to think if we talked about any finales. I don't think we did. I think we just made it very specific to exactly what would happen to the people on this show. And it's what happens to a lot of people that we... I mean, again, everything on the show, even though it becomes absurd and we blow it out and make it nuts, everything is based in something that's happened to one or most of us in the writer's room. So what happens on the show is based in truth. Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on Broad City and
Thank
all the
you.
success. It's the final season premieres Thursday night
Thursday
on
night.
Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Everybody, big round of applause for Paul W. Downs. Let's hear it.